Dynamite download.
AEW 2020, John Silver.
Special event, as you can see, SPD.
For a smashing good time. January recruitment month for them.
I come along, I come along in the ring.
I mean, I would not want to hear that. I would not
Welcome to Dynamite Download.
Welcome y'all to episode 29. Guess what, SPD?
What's up?
You and I survived longer than NXT in the Wednesday Night Wars. This is officially the end. This is officially
way.
This is the
Dynamite
end.
Download has succeeded that. That's a good fun fact, man.
We have made it through. The Wednesday Night Wars are over. This is the final week that NXT and AEW Dynamite will go head to head. I have a feeling a lot of great wrestling fans are going to be happier at the end of all this. Honestly, it's going to allow me as a fan, I'm not alone, to be able to kind of watch the shows separated without all the BS and the ratings and all that stuff, conversation. It's really great to get into that. Obviously, this week NXT brought it with their show. They have a takeover tonight. So AEW, it felt like this show did not, they kind of respected the legend of an NXT takeover.
Right.
And that said, bro, during the middle of this week's Dynamite, AEW announced next week's card, and I think that
pay-per-view quality.
AEW is going all in, saying, all right, like next week, all eyes on Wednesday night are going to be on AEW. So let's make sure that we're pulling out all the stops. Geeked to talk to you about that one. Cannot wait to see next week's show. But let's get into tonight's show. There were some draws in this one. Obviously, some unique matchups. To me, going into this one, the biggest one of them all was to see that inner circle pinnacle relationship continue to play out like it did. That was the draw, and that's saying something when you do say that Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers are on this card against Jon Moxley and the Young Bucks. So honestly, SPD, there's a lot to get into as always with the Dynamite. Here, I almost said it. Tell me about, like, when you look at this card, were you with me? Were you thinking that the pinnacle and the inner circle was that dynamic, that relationship? What had you coming in for this week's show? Excited for it?
I was texting to you guys, you and Bonds today, and I was still riding full throttle, high to the brim, overflowing of excitement of what happened last week on Dynamite, rewatching that segment over and over again and posting some of our clips on our story and having, some Pinnacle members and some Inner Circle members repost it, which was pretty cool. I could not wait because I've been saying it we know the promo battle. I mean, we got to get into the depth of that, but yes, we'll talk deep into that very, very soon before we get out of order in a way. But that was the number one thing I was looking forward to, and it delivered tenfolds and then some.
Awesome, man.
But the opening match, we'll review the results and get into the nuts and the meat and potatoes of the card.
Get into the meat and potatoes of it, brother.
But Hangman Adam Page defeated Max Caster, two up and coming stars that are definitely a core of AEW that are great. Hangman being a more veteran, but Caster is looking more and more comfortable in the ring, and it was a good battle to start the match. And it's nice to see Anthony Bones back from a slight injury. So
he got involved in this one too.
So I enjoyed this opening match to kick off Dynamite.
Yeah, and then it segued into there was a lot of stuff that happened in this one. In between the matches, it felt like there was so much to unpack in the segments and the interviews and the promos. But then the next match on the card that we got our teeth into was the Godzilla versus Kong match, the Jurassic Express versus Bear Country. This one's been brewing for a little while.
Sure.
And it was interesting to see where they would go with this one. But I think that ultimately AEW went with the right. I mean, the Team Jurassic Express, there's a lot of potential with those guys. They are mainstays on AEW television. And they pulled out the W. I mean, I think Bear Country in their inexperience, unfortunately, just they were not able to match up with Jurassic Express, pull out that W. But it was a great back and forth match. That was one of the better matches on tonight's card.
Yeah, big guys in there and some heavy hitting for sure. And speaking of another big guy, JD Drake, which I've kind of been like a silent fan of him on his dark performances, and for him to go against Darby Allin and get a title shot obviously was a little bit controversy, and you know, people are hit or miss with that, but whatever. I'm all fine for advancing people. Yes, maybe he not be number one ranked. And next week we have Matt Hardy versus Darby Allin, which is absolutely amazing quality match for sure.
Yep.
Hopefully they do some awesome cinematic promos back and forth, but Darby getting a convincing win, better than we didn't see a roll-up finish, which I absolutely hate. So I was happy to see him kind of overpower a powerhouse and take the victory.
We'll get into that more. I have a lot to say about that one. I don't. And it comes to Darby Allin victories, I guess that is a convincing win for him. That was definitely, it felt like JD dominated most of that matchup. But we'll get more into that when we get there. But honestly, that match, I mean, just on the heels of that match, it bled into the women's match. There was the Bunny versus Ty Conti. There was so much going on in that one. Butcher and Blade got in, got their hands all over Darby after that match. We're tossing him around, literally, like just tossing him. And so that was an entertaining way to finish that matchup and bleed into the women's match. Ty Conti, our number one contender for the women's championship, she showed up, man. That woman is quickly becoming like in the same mold of a Thunder Rosa, where you want to see her in the ring, man. She pushes the pace. She brings those hard hitting strikes. Ty Conti is definitely someone to watch in the women's division. Really excited to see what is in store for her down the road, and potentially getting that title shot against Hikaru Shida. That one could be a lot of fun.
Which she was in her corner this tonight and helped her out, so that was interesting. So we'll see how that goes. But the main event, saw a lot of twists and turns, and some misdirection and some interesting direction where they're going. But Kenny Omega and the Good Brothers and the Young Bucks essentially defeated Jon Moxley. So we'll dive right back into the beginning before we get too in depth. But Hangman Adam Page going up against Max Caster, the Acclaimed. Which from day one, I was never a huge Acclaimed fan, but very, very, very rapidly have I turned the page thanks to you. It was great. We had the number one contender, Hangman Adam Page, against the number 3 contender of Caster in this. Yeah, and you could really, I do love the Acclaimed. I'm not going to say Mark. I'm going to say I'm an Acclaimed Max.
You're an Acclaimed Max now.
You're an Acclaimed Max too, with that Max MJF shirt, bro.
You know it, bud.
You're a total Mark. But also I really think you can tell that Caster and Bowens are getting more and more comfortable on TV. Like they're just obviously they're smoother on the mic, and just their body language just seems like they're home. Very, very smooth. Both everything out there. I love the battle outside the ring. I love how Caster was getting involved. Bowens was getting involved. It was a good battle of young stars back and forth. And I honestly, the result, I would have been fine with Caster stealing that win. Like even though Hangman is on such a huge push, undefeated in 2021, huge pay-per-view win against Hardy. But to get a cheat to win, a dirty heel win out of Caster on this would have really been awesome for him. And it really wouldn't have hurt Hangman. And then you can kind of maybe develop a little side feud of this going on. And I would have supported it for sure. But I enjoyed the match. And those two guys are talent to watch in AEW for sure.
Yeah, man. I love hearing you talk about the Acclaimed like this. As the tag team guy on this crew, I felt like I had to do my homework on them, right? I had to, because they burst onto the scene kind of out of nowhere. And you and I both were like, their first promo, they were like kind of corny, talking about the Young Bucks and their book cover, and their lines weren't hitting as hard. But ever since then, man, dude, like I become a big Max Caster and Anthony Bowens fan, man. I think that these guys got a lot of talent. I think that it was great to see Bowens out there getting physical a little bit. We know that he's been recovering from an injury, so he definitely made his impact on this match. There were multiple points in this one, whether it was trying to get to use the boombox, grabbing onto Hangman's legs and holding on tight when he was going for the buckshot lariat, and throwing Hangman into the barricade. I mean, Bowens was all over this match. His fingerprints were all over this one, and as you said, it would have been a perfect opportunity to kind of allow Max to get that cheap win, knowing that there was a lot of outside noise and outside interference. You could have ran this one back. And honestly, I would have loved to see another diss track from Max going against Hangman. Max's promo work, dude, I'm telling you, he definitely at points in this match, there were a couple times in which he had a stumble when he went to do that kind of springboard move off the second rope. Springboard suplex, basically.
Right.
He kind of stumbled a little bit. That's not, I mean, honestly, he recovered very quickly and made it smooth as typical with Caster. But man, dude, this dude's promo work is some of the best in all of wrestling right now. His lines, his raps coming to the ring this week were absolutely on point. He had a couple moments there where he had me going with the Biden line on the steps.
God,
and talking about and having to get cut off because of the blow me line. I mean, there was a lot of funny stuff. Caster's been great. And then his stuff that was on Dark, I mean, his segment against Hangman was absolutely awesome. So just another opportunity here where AEW has another, kind of untapped superstar on their hands. But what was interesting to me, there were two things that really jumped out in this one that I'm going to stick with. I felt like Max, since we're talking about Max, I thought Max wrestled this match very intelligently. He worked the arm throughout the match. He was working on that shoulder. And any Hangman fan knows that really it's a match could be going very poorly for Hangman, but all it takes is one split second for him to hit that buckshot lariat, and the match can be over. You could go lights out. So for Max to continue to work on that shoulder, work on that arm, it showed that he's quick, very intelligent wrestler. I thought that was very well played by Max throughout this match. It was kind of a bummer that Hangman didn't necessarily sell that, and it didn't really impact the finish much. But so that was one of the main things I took away, was I really felt like Max's psychology was really on point in this match. And then the other was that I was shocked, but JR talked about it. Max is 31 and Hangman's only 29 years old, bro. I mean, like, there's some
really?
yeah, dude, like AEW, we get caught up in it, and as fans of AEW, like, we see it. Like, there's a lot of stars on this roster. It's loaded, right? But when you hear like JR talk about that, it kind of puts things in perspective, because we already kind of think like Hangman is an established star in AEW, right? Like, we already know what he's capable of. But really, dude, he hasn't even hit 30. Guy's potential, he's not even in his prime yet. So there's a lot to love about the future of AEW. Yes, the foundation and cornerstone of this company right now is very healthy with the John Moxleys and the Kenny Omegas of the world. But when you have a guy like Hangman, who already feels like a legitimate, true top level guy, and he is not even 30 years old yet, bro. I mean, it speaks volumes to the potential that these guys have, man. I think a lot of upside in AEW's roster moving forward, and this was a great showcase for it. You got to see two young guys who are really on the opposite sides of the spectrum. Max likes to talk a lot. Hangman likes to let his fist do the talk for him. SPD, this one's an elite out of me. Out of me too. I feel like it could have been a little better if I felt like the one thing about this was I struggled with it at the end with Hangman not selling all that work that Max did on the shoulder. But man, this was entertaining. It was funny. Bowens getting involved throughout was on point. I thought it was a great way to start off Dynamite and a good showcase for the young talent that this company has to offer.
Definitely, and I know you were probably salivating, profusely when you saw that the Death Triangle was going to be coming out, and I thought it was not obviously great to see Pac back, but like this, just the entrance alone, Ray Phoenix just coming in and just flipping over the top rope and just smoothly and gracefully. I was just like, man, this guy is just incredible. I can't say so much about him.
Yeah,
but,
you geek out over just his entrance alone, right?
I know, right? And I'm all for what established at this right here. Best friends and Death Triangle. I'm all for that segue of best friends back together reuniting, which at one point was the hottest babyface trio on in AEW.
No doubt.
And for them to go to feuding with an awesome team like Death Triangle is going to be a great battle when that comes down the line. And of course, we got a Pac's horn, but I just love the pacing of his promos. And just his accent is so powerful.
Yeah.
And what he can say, obviously Ray and Lucha are these outstanding veteran team in the ring, but, their promos for AEW may not necessarily be capable at the, just back and forth. But with Pac to the pace and just what he can say. And then the best friends, man, I really liked what they had to say, that the boys are back in town plus an alien. I think both teams really shined in this segment with the promo battle, and what's to come is a nice, finally, I guess we do have the book closed on the Miro stuff, shifting gears, which is good. And then where he goes from here, who knows? So I like this.
Yeah. I thought it was a home run. And obviously you couldn't have two more opposite groups, right? I mean, the Death Triangle led by Pac and his dude, like JR talked about, just an angry son of a bitch, right? Just an angry bastard. Pac's just intensity is just on another level. But when you have a guy like that leading that group, just angry, bad dudes, and then you got the laid back, chill mentality of the best friends, they really are polar opposites. And it's going to be interesting to see how these guys go up against each other. I mean, obviously, I thought Orange Cassidy, again, I love how AEW plays off of its history.
Yep.
Orange Cassidy reminding the world that, the Death Triangle really rubbed Orange Cassidy's nose in it after that beating that they gave him. They really not only made a point to beat Orange Cassidy, but to try to humiliate him and embarrass him. I thought that was really well played and planted the seeds for why they still have an issue with him, right? I thought that was really well played. We missed Trent. I'll say I really missed Trent throughout all this period with the best friends. To see him back and kind of leading that promo charge, kind of making sure these guys are refocused. I really thought, and his promo, he brought it out, dude. The best friends have the most wins out of any tag team in all of AEW. For him to drop that kind of line, it re-emphasizes why they are where they are and why they have the confidence and the swagger that they have now that they're back. Yeah, they're going to have to, come back and build themselves and get some wins under their belt. Absolutely. But the best friends, they have a reputation for a reason. So I thought that promo delivered. Like you said, man, Pac's promo, the way that guy, his pacing and just the way he can say certain lines, some of it is the accent, but he just brings it in another way. I thought him kind of reminding them all that they're going to have to get that he sees through what they're doing. They interrupted his time. And the reason why is because they want to get under the skin of the future tag champs. I loved how Pac laid that out there, reminded the world that the Death Triangle is getting that title shot, and it's happening next week. Again, next week's card is going to be absolutely insane. So
pay-per-view quality.
You get to see Phoenix and Pac going against the Bucks. That's going to be it's going to be a tough one to beat, that to top, man. That is going to be must watch, guys. And if you're listening to this show, I urge you, next week's show, get other friends, get your fans out there, get your buddies, push that show, because that's going to be a heck of a show. This laid the framework for that, though, and I thought that going into that, I'm excited to see, do the best friends get involved? We've known, even though that they're the good guys, we know that those guys have no problem getting involved and kind of starting stuff and stirring the pot. And that the Young Bucks are going to have a lot of drama surrounding them going into next week's match. So going to be an interesting one. That one I'm very intrigued by.
Absolutely. And like you said, pay-per-view quality, free TV next week. And boy, this was the moment and moments of the night for me
Oh my
was
gosh.
the most highly anticipated part of Dynamite that I did not want to miss, no matter what. This was it, man. I have a lot to say about this, man. Finally, Judas is back in his original form, and of course they show. I'm a tunnel guru. The babyface tunnel. The boys are back. The men are back in black.
Back in black, baby.
All black, biker style gear. The scruff, man. We are still buzzing like big time from last week with the Inner Circle. And Jericho, I knew. I mean, you talk about two of the best in the mic in AEW. Obviously, MJF and Jericho are names that you cannot leave out. Period. And MJF had his jabs, and Jericho finally. I mean, I don't know. That was like a 5 to 8 minute promo.
He was on a rant.
He did not miss a beat. He stayed relevant. He stayed to me at the edge of my seat. Oh my gosh, he called the Pinnacle the pineapple.
I like that.
I loved how he just tied in so many different things. He obviously is such a professional, telling the crowd on our side, really hinting, pushing the babyface turn.
Oh, yeah.
He actually apologized. The beatdown was a wake-up call. I don't know how many times he said that MJF was his jerk-off friend, the jerk-off, this. So, the one line that really stood out was that he's not taking him under his wing. He's keeping him under his thumb. Mm-hmm. And that was like a very, very smart line by Jericho. And, I've been saying it for week in and week out, MJF's orange spray tan. And finally Jericho calls him out with the spray tan, how he's got the orange rings in the toilet, with a swirly. Boy, oh boy, was Jericho on fire. And you know what? I think we should put a poll out there on Twitter. Maybe let this kind of digest a little, but of who threw stronger jabs, MJF or Jericho, when you combine the promos. Like, who do you think is winning this mic drop promo battle right now? And man, I don't know. I have to think about it. Both guys are absolutely. I mean, I'm a huge Jericho fan. You're an MJF Max. You're a Max, not a Mark anymore.
I'm a Max. Yeah, I'm a Max.
But JR said it great because it was an immortal promo by Jericho, and
no doubt.
Unfortunately, like I said before, I had tickets to Blood and Guts in New Jersey. It would have been 2 Marches ago. Now we're going to get Blood and Guts on May 5th so soon, and it's almost too soon. We don't want we don't want them to go head to head, and it won't be the end. But oh my gosh, what did you
remember? Just remember, May 5th is about a month from now. A lot's gonna happen between now and then, right? We know AEW packs a lot of content in every single episode. You know that these guys. You combine that and what they do on social media, we're going to have plenty of content that's going to get us just chomping at the bit to see these guys go at each other. That said, SPD, I hear you, man. I feel like Blood and Guts could be one of those where like that could be like a blow off to this feud. And I'm not ready for the Pinnacle versus Inner Circle to just be over with in a month's time. I feel like this one is something that could lead into the summer. Certainly, what I think they should do is obviously have those two factions go to war. But as we get to see next week, we're going to see Jericho against Dax. We've talked about this at Dynamite Download countless times. These two factions, the matchups that you can have, the pairings that you could have between talents, there's a lot that still needs to come out of this. I mean, we need to see Santana Ortiz versus FTR. We need to see that. I personally feel like the way that this has been going, a Sammy versus MJF match at some point would be very cathartic. And that's not to mention Jericho versus MJF. There's just a lot of options and a lot of chess pieces that can be moved around. We know that MJF is the ultimate. Like we've talked about it a long time ago. It feels like MJF is playing chess when everybody else is playing checkers. The guy is always manipulating and moving things to get into his, to strategically get things aligned for his benefit. Yeah. I have a feeling that Max is going to have a couple things up his sleeve. And I want to see this play out as much as possible on AEW moving forward. With Britt Baker and Thunder Rosa, that feud sort of taking a little bit of a backseat as Thunder is getting more, more in tune and more acclimated to NWA. Now that NWA Power's back, you see that, obviously Britt continues to throw her jabs at Thunder, no doubt, keeps it fresh in our minds. But there is a place that has opened up a big spot on the card for another huge feud, and this one is filling that void and then some. The Inner Circle versus the Pinnacle is fantastic, back and forth, and as you talked about, just the segments alone with these interviews and these punches that they're throwing, verbal jabs at each other, man, it's just on point. I'd be interested to see what the fans have to say. I have a feeling that after Jericho's epic rant tonight, he's going to have the lead. Obviously,
let's
Jericho
do a poll tomorrow with our highlight video of this. A clip of this, like who threw better jabs, who is leading the promo battle on this, man. I like I said on Friday Night Flights of Fights, give us two dice, roll them.
Yeah, dice,
match, and I'll be happy with it. That can main event the show.
Absolutely.
Any of those guys, and so this needs to be extended. Obviously the Ultimate War. Then I guess you're like it could just lead into more feuds. Like if someone really puts down someone else, then maybe they can some more singles matches. But you have to have these two teams going head to head every single week leading up to this. And we're going to talk just everything Inner Circle right now. Mike Tyson coming to the aid of Chris Jericho.
Yeah.
Tyson got announced. Obviously the last time we saw him was face to face with Jericho and throwing punches with each other. And so it was a nice full circle. Jericho kind of, saying thank you and, making up, but like Tyson coming to the aid after a brutal, pile driver from FTR and potential through the table. So I was hoping Tyson would get an MJF, but, Spears had to settle for, being the sacrificial lamb essentially.
Yeah.
But I didn't expect the Pinnacle to be there tonight,
Well,
So
I mean, and here's the
surprise.
thing. When we look at the content, right, of what we're talking about, this is why I'm rocking my MJF shirt tonight, man. I got to give MJF his props, man. He talked about
he's probably watching right now, like Jericho said, checking in the back.
He's a max for himself. The content of what these guys talked about, I give the edge to the Pinnacle. I give the edge to MJF only because when you look at what they say and how they deliver it. Max said it, man. After the beatdown that the Pinnacle gave the Inner Circle, he kept taunting Jericho and crew and told him, if that happened to us, we'd be right back here, right in your face the next week, getting our revenge. The Inner Circle got beat down badly. I mean, we saw Dax just an absolutely epic cut on his head from that beating that Santana gave him in that one. Obviously, MJF got busted through a Pepsi machine. And they came back. They came back for more. So I got to give Pinnacle their props for that, for being, the heels. They easily could revert to being cowards. Could hide and play mind games, but they didn't. These guys are not backing down from a fight. They're here to prove a point. They want to knock the Inner Circle off the top of the mountaintop. They want to be at that point. They want to be at the top. So I got to give those guys props. There were a couple moments in Jericho's promo where I was like, man, I mean, I'm a fan of FTR, so I was like kind of getting a little. I was like, dude, come on, Dax versus Cash. Like we've seen it. Dax has definitely been making some strides in 2021. Ever since the calendar has been flipped, he's really been killing it. I felt like the difference between these when I go back and watch them is, MJF, he stuck to something that I tend to, and there's different ways you can cut a promo, but I tend to think that like if you build up your opponent and recognize their strengths, it makes it when you beat them, it makes you that much better. And so MJF throughout his promo, his promo work, he definitely, I don't know, he spent a little bit more time, I feel like, recognizing, putting a little more respect on his opponents and then building up his own team to be better than them. Right. Whereas Jericho kind of did the classic babyface thing, kind of making comedy jokes and cutting down the opponents and making little zingers and one-liners that are funny and have us reeling. I thought that the spray tan one was one of my favorite lines of the night. But
I kept saying it time and time again, and it was so great that it was noticed globally as well.
Yep. No doubt, dude. No doubt. I think that this one has got a lot of potential to it. And it was great to see a fired up Jericho again. I mean, he was out there. He looks slimmer. He looks good with the facial hair. He's looking like on point with that. Santana and Ortiz. I mean, the whole crew was looking badass tonight. So if you're an Inner Circle fan, which I know you are, SPD, you have to be excited to see them reestablished, treated as the top stars that they are.
Yep.
And it's nice to see a little babyface team put together here. I mean, so often stables are usually, or factions are usually heel based. It's nice to see the Inner Circle have some babyface vibes to them. I think that's going to go a long way. We've talked about it for countless times. I mean, Sammy Guevara is somebody who is a natural babyface. We've said it time and again. That guy's offense, just his overall presentation screams babyface to me. And then Santana Ortiz and the way that those guys kind of scrap and claw, always never really seem to get that opportunity to get put over the top and be treated as a top tag team that we know that they are.
True.
They kind of have those babyface vibes to them too. And I know that there's a lot of fans of Dynamite Download out here too that are on the same page as us, that they were chomping at the bit to see Santana Ortiz get that win against the Bucks earlier this year.
We were screaming for it.
Right. So it's I think this is a natural transition for the Inner Circle, especially with such easy guys to hate across from them. This is going to make some good TV, man.
That's absolutely for sure. And we could talk a whole episode on the Inner Circle, but next up we're going to talk about Christian Cage's promo. And, being interrupted by Team Taz, potentially trying to recruit him. So, what did you think about that?
Well, I was scrolling through the timeline before Dynamite tonight, just kind of scrolling, just getting the vibe of the general audience, like fan base out there and stuff. And then and I saw Taz throw out that tweet where he's like, "I'm cutting the BS. I'm in the mood to recruit tonight. Like I'm bringing somebody on board." He seemed very serious tonight. Taz was focused. Between this segment where he interrupted Cage, he made a lot of sense. I mean, he was obviously Taz. We've always appreciated that he's an intelligent guy. He's always when he cuts promos, they're hard hitting. The guy is always on point, and he tells it like it is. So he kind of gave the audience a quick backstory of Christian and I go way back, and everything he said made a lot of sense. He sees a lot of disruption going on in his own crew, maybe getting like where he can't keep them all together himself. Taz is kind of recognizing that this is starting to get out of control. Having a calming presence like Christian, a smart veteran who could buy into what Taz is teaching these guys and preaching to these guys, who can lead by example. Taz did a great job pitching it to Christian and making it make sense.
True.
Outside of just the Brian Cage, Christian Cage, having two Cages in his tandem in his team, it made sense coming from Taz's perspective. He's reaching out to an old colleague that he sees like, this guy can help reel these youngsters. Brian Cage is kind of an established veteran himself, but these guys can kind of Christian can kind of reel in these big personalities,
right? Bring
them all together, calm them down, recognize and help lead by example. That said, the next segment we got to see these guys in. Taz tried his best to squash that inner turmoil and say, guys, we're trying to recruit somebody into our group. We gotta stick together here. There has to be a Team Taz for Christian to come to. You got to stop stirring the pot, Ricky. So I thought that Taz was really a star. Yeah, Taz was a star of tonight. Anytime that he's on the mic, Bonds and I always talk about it. We're big fans of how Taz cuts a promo, how he commands the audience's attention, doesn't insult our intelligence. He did a nice job tonight. I'm curious to see. I highly doubt that Christian accepts this, but we've seen crazier things.
Yeah, you're right. There is crazier things to see, like having Godzilla versus Kong. I watched that movie the other day, and it was crazier things. Two Titans, as they call it in the movie. I don't know if you've seen it or not, but
I tried
in here. But we have speaking of Titans, we had three massive men with Luchasaurus and Bear Country, and just going in an absolute physical brawl for sure. Yep. And it was a hard-hitting match for sure, and it was entertaining. I'm a huge Luchasaurus fan of what he can do in the ring. Jungle Boy has rapidly grown. I've grown a huge fan of him. Some stuff like that. And, it's another one of those cases like Bear Country, watching them on Dark. I was like, okay, they're big guys, they're physical, their gimmick, and then they're slowly winning me over again. I was not a Bear Country fan, but now they're slowly winning me over, and I still want to see them feud, more long term with Butcher and Blade in some like hardcore match. I think that would be awesome.
Use their strength. Yeah.
So this one, I enjoyed it for sure. What did you think about it? And, I liked, Jurassic Express just kind of starting to reestablish himself as the top babyface again. So it was important for them to take the victory. Was it elite or delete for you?
Well, I mean, I think the right team won. I thought that this was a match where, like, Bear Country and Jurassic Express, you could see this one go either way, right? Bear Country has definitely been getting built up over the weeks as an up and coming team that is a powerhouse, right? So
True.
They did have that feud recently with Butcher and Blade, and it felt like these guys could use a big W coming off the heels of that feud. But I felt like the right team won. I think that Jurassic Express is. I know that they're one of your favorite tag teams. I feel like that tag team is definitely like just so naturally charismatic and easy to get behind that it's interesting timing. Obviously, just as the Best Friends are coming back and you get a strong babyface tag team with them, now AEW is starting to kind of push Jurassic Express again. Interesting timing. It felt like that Jurassic Express could have filled that void as the top babyface tag team while Best Friends were on the shelf. That said, I'm not going to complain about getting to see Jungle Jack and Luchasaurus on Dynamite more. I think that those guys, when it's from their entrance to their we love their entrance.
Oh yeah.
From their entrance to really that like blend of styles. I mean, you got Luchasaurus, who's a big dude, like you talk about, huge fella, incredible athlete.
Yeah.
And then you have Jack, who's always pushing the pace, very, very smart young wrestler, and Jack Perry. Big fan of what I'm seeing out of Jack. JR called a shot tonight, man. I talked about it on social. JR said it in this match that at some point in 2021, JR believes firmly that Jungle Boy is either going to be world champion or TNT champion. And that's a big statement coming from a legend like JR. So definitely a lot of eyes are on Jungle Boy. It seems like the AEW higher-ups see what we see. This kid is definitely, I really believe that feud with FTR, it unleashed a different side of Jungle Boy that we have not seen. And I think that's part of that, to me, like an intensity, a different gear. I think that the Jungle Boy was pushed to really embrace a more technical style. He's obviously always been very, very athletic and can throw some incredible, top rope moves, and his drop kicks are always on point. But the snare trap is quickly,
I love that
becoming one of my favorite finishers in all of AEW. Just really deadly, lethal move when he locks that in. And that feud with Dax really, I feel like, solidified him. That match between Jungle Boy and Dax is still one of my favorite matches in AEW this year. I really believe that they have something with that crew. I don't know where Bear Country goes from here. As you said, I believe that they could, there's a lot of opportunity in the tag division. I'd like to see them go against some bigger teams and see what they can do. But I want to see where Jurassic Express goes from here. That to me is the big question. That's
a good point.
Who's next in line for them? Obviously, they want to get themselves a title shot, but where do they go? Who do they go against? They certainly don't seem like they're engaged in a big feud. The Kong versus Godzilla match tonight seems like kind of like the end of that Bear Country chapter. What's next for those guys? So I'm intrigued by it. I'm when I look at the landscape of AEW, I certainly would have loved to see the Acclaimed in a position where they could have a match. You talk about two, that would be a team that would be, for me, a nice heel versus babyface pairing, and two teams that I want to see more of. But there's a lot of options in this. AEW's roster is absolutely stacked with tag teams, man. So very intrigued by where they go.
Yeah, and this is another scenario intriguing. QT Marshall obviously has been on and off TV and not necessarily talked about that much, but boy, is he ever talked about now as of late of what we saw last week. And now, this is truly, I mean, we've seen a couple segments, but to cut a promo like this that was, full of emotion, you talk about untapped potential or untapped talent. Like, man, this guy is quickly making this feud extremely relevant and important. And, it's going to lead to Anthony Ogogo's in-ring debut. So this is, like big push for QT coming. And that's what's so great about AEW is they have so much talent or necessarily unknown talent or untapped potential that they're not afraid to go in. And for this, and I understand, Cody obviously is a genius on many levels, and he knows he makes decisions that sometimes you scratch your head, but then down the line, why it's made. Whatever match it may be. So this promo, man, was absolutely fire and, very personal.
Yes.
And it's just, I'm excited for this. I'm excited.
We talked a lot about like tonight's Dynamite. I felt like was very heavy on awesome promos.
Yes.
To the point where I felt like the promos all in the segments sometimes at times outshined the in-ring matches in tonight's episode. I know everyone's buzzing about Jericho and understandably so. It was like was an epic rant. I thought DMD's promo later on, we'll talk about that, was on point. I'm going to get into that one. But I was really, I was really impressed by QT tonight, man. I thought that, there's a lot of people, a lot of skeptics that can throw some shade at QT for being in the position that he's in and seeing this feud when it played out. I know that there were people who were vocal online about, man, him going against Cody, that's an opportunity that should have gone to somebody else, and and all this stuff, bro. Anything like that gets silenced after a night like tonight. QT Marshall cut. He cut an absolutely badass promo, man. When he was going hard at Cody, some of the lines that he was going in, digging in his past, talking about how he knew he had to paint his face to make it, because even as Dusty Rhodes' son, he still didn't have it in him to be a big timer, a big star. Mentioning Ted DiBiase Jr. Going back to Cody's origins, dude, just digging in hard at Cody and trying to dig up some of those insecurities within Cody. We look at Cody now, and the AEW fan base does not really see the journey up to AEW. If you didn't see where Cody came from, QT was quick to remind you. Cody himself battled a lot of critics, a lot of people who said he was only in this business because he was Dusty's son. That he wasn't a top guy. He was a good, decent guy in the ring who could get other people over, had a name, and that he was only really in the position that he was in because of his dad. And, for QT to bring those things up, kind of rip this, dig away at those old wounds.
Right.
I felt like it was trying to goad Cody into getting emotional, getting bent, and also push Cody to feel like maybe look himself in the mirror and say, Cody, you did exactly to me what you hated about people doing to you in your career.
Yeah.
You set me up. And again, I love when our characters have consistent, intelligent motivations. But if you're QT Marshall, you can say, man, like, you did exactly to me what you said that you hated, and that it pushed you to leave the big time and bet on yourself and travel the world to try to figure out and find your own career. You look at the situation you put me in. No matter what I do, people are always going to think that I'm only here because of you. So I just felt like the very intelligent promo by QT. Obviously now the Nightmare Family is no more. It's just the Nightmare Factory. Now it's just the Factory. I thought QT did a great job of putting over the guys in his crew. Anthony Ogogo, dude, that dude just
got a great look.
He grabbed the spotlight quickly in that segment. If anybody, I mean, for us here, we all love Nick Camarado. We all see potential in that dude. Aaron Solo, I know you've talked to me a little bit about how much you've enjoyed some of his matches on Dark and things like that. But Anthony's going to get an opportunity next week on Dynamite for his in-ring debut. And I think a lot of people are chomping at the bit to see what this guy can do, because if he can deliver in the ring, and we know he's a boxing. I mean, the dude was an Olympian. Is it a boxer? The guy has a lot of upside as far as being a believable fighter and a believable superstar and an international draw. We know the Khan family are very big on that international draw. Being involved in Premier League and everything like that overseas. These guys know what they're doing. But I feel like if he can deliver a promo like he did tonight and he could go in the ring, AEW has another star on their hands. I love how much talent this roster has, man. It's unbelievable.
It's true, man. It is damn true. And one of the biggest fans of we are at Dynamite Download is Lance Archer. And unfortunately, the predictable segment that we constantly get with Sting and what we've seen with Archer
at this point.
Well, I mean, Jake the Snake is starting to become an MVP of these segments, man. The stuff that he says, and Archer put an awesome, dominant performance on Elevation, followed by an absolute fire and brimstone promo afterwards. This stuff, and it's interesting. Finally, hopefully we'll see this go head to head, and he's in his way. Lance is on a mission, a murder hawk, and he's on a warpath, which is nothing new, and he seems very focused. And it's just Sting is just going to be another victim in his path. And so
you think? I mean, I don't know, man.
I hope so.
Well,
I hope Sting puts him over.
I question, like, this was the first time, because I was with you. I felt like this was setting up a Lance Archer versus Sting feud, and like a potential match, and maybe that's what's going to happen. But there were moments in this where I felt like Sting was planting seeds of where, like, Jake's, he was like, basically like, I agree with you, Lance. I understand why you're frustrated. You are a main event guy. You are a top talent. And why do you continue to why does it continue to be this roller coaster for your career where you're at the top and then you disappear? And it felt like Sting was almost pouring gasoline on that fire of Lance, where like Lance was frustrated, and it felt like Sting was almost poking at Jake, and Jake the Snake failing as a mentor. Hey, Jake, Jake, why is this true? Why is it that Lance is this 6'7", 6'8" badass who can look like a star, who could talk like a star, who has traveled the world and paid his dues, and who absolutely deserves to be a top guy? Why is it that he can consistently fall by the wayside under your tutelage? How are you allowing that to happen? I got a lot of that out of that, and Sting was definitely coming at Jake tonight, and not pulling punches, basically going right after Lance's mentor. And we've talked about it. Does Lance need Jake at this point? Potentially, this could lead to a fracture in that relationship. Sting planting those seeds of, maybe Lance is better off without someone over his shoulder. Maybe Lance is better off on his own, or potentially he could learn something from the Stinger, right? I mean, Sting has been a main eventer his entire career. He was in the Main Event Mafia after all. And so it's like, maybe there's something there. I don't know. I certainly think that maybe my pontificating aside, I think that, these things are actually quite, it's kind of funny to hear these week after week. We're going to hear from Sting. I think that's becoming a troll job. It's funny to hear, to see AEW kind of troll us and kind of goad us that Sting's going to cut a promo. Lance is definitely understandably frustrated with where he's at. We've talked about that at length here at Dynamite Download. We are huge fans of the Murder Hawk. We have been from day one. We've been huge advocates of his star power. We believe that guy deserves to have a title run in this current iteration of his career. And so he was echoing a lot of our frustrations. I mean, I think that it was good to hear Lance come out strong and say, enough's enough. So a lot of seeds that were planted in that one. One of the things that was funny, I felt like Jake called Darby Last week he called Darby a weenie, told him to go put his hot dog bun on, and then this week he called Darby a weasel? He called him a weasel. What, right? Darby. He called Darby a weenie and a weasel or something along those lines. So Jake's really coming hard with these old man like jokes and these like
maybe maybe he's used to the other brands, kind of restrictions. So maybe
good call.
He takes some notes from MJF and Jericho with what they can and cannot say. But I guess he's doing the right thing with being whatever. It makes sense because he's such a small little guy, Darby. So you can call him any little name and it'll just berate him even more. But Darby, we saw him keep continuing essentially the open challenge with a match against JD Drake, which, like I said earlier, I've enjoyed the physicality of JD Drake's matches. I'm glad that he has some new ring gear. It's doing him a lot of help personally. Mm-hmm. The big black Speedo wasn't necessarily a good look for him. I mean, it's a classic look for sure, but when you see this ring gear, it adds more of a, it shows that he's a professional to me.
Right. Yep.
You put this just a plain black Speedo, no logo, no nothing, put him in the corner. You're thinking it's just an enhancement talent, but this is actually showing like he's talent. But boy, oh boy, does this guy hit hard, and he can dish the pain and he could take the pain. And that's something I really love to watch in wrestling. And this is just another one of those like lopsided Darby matches, and on paper, like JD Drake should be, I mean, Darby has beat Cage. So obviously that is the ultimate David versus Goliath, but I was very happy with the ending because he had the top rope move, then the coffin drop. Like, yeah, that's a convincing victory to me. Some of the other convincing victories that we've seen him do were a little, half, I would say, lazy victories in a way and not as convincing. So I know you have a lot to say about this match. All I'm going to say is I'm happy that Darby is defending his title. Mm-hmm. And I have nothing against JD Drake getting a shot on Dynamite at all. And like I said, I enjoy watching his matches. The physicality was entertaining and the finish I was happy with. But that being said, it didn't really live up to me as it should have. But those are the pros that I saw out of the match.
Yeah, so. I'll start off on a positive note because you laid the foundation for a positive take on this. So I'll say this, like
thank John Cena.
Very, very physical match. Very physical. And I gotta say the two main things I want to take away from this on a positive way is that the physicality, that was one of them. I loved like that corner spot where I think a lot of it was happening in picture, but Darby was just open palm smacking JD Drake across the face while JD was up on the turnbuckle. I mean, and I'm talking about like way back here and coming up and smacking him across the face as hard as he could. He must have smacked JD Drake like a half dozen, 10 times in the face. I mean, and there's no faking that. He just got smacked hard in the face. And I think some of that might have happened because, like you talked about, Darby might have been a little frustrated with how physical JD Drake was in this match. You could tell there were points in which Drake recognized this was a huge opportunity for him. And he wasn't going to be caught like, half-assing it while he was out there with the TNT champ. He leaned into a lot of his offense. I got to give the man props for what he did. He looked like a powerhouse. And that leads into my second thing. My second positive is, man, like every Darby match that I've seen, his opponent always looks like $1 million. Always. I mean, like that's a huge compliment. I got to give it to Darby. I mean, every Darby match, you come away saying like, man, like whether it's Brian Cage or, again, Joey Janela, like his match with Janela, I thought was fantastic. We've had countless examples. This was another one where JD Drake came out looking really good in this match. Like this helped establish Drake as someone who you could see fight and have a good match on Dynamite and not just look, like you said, not just look as an enhancement talent. That's nice, and I appreciate that. And I got to give props to Darby for allowing his championship run he's clearly a protected guy in AEW. He's got a lot of star power. He's an enigma in his own way. He draws attention and fans that just in droves. But he's not the typical champion, and that's where there's a good and a bad, right? There's a yin and a yang. It leads into this being a delete for me, and the reason why is that the Darby is not clicking for me as a champ. I've tried really hard to acknowledge.
I go back and forth a lot.
I'm just having a hard time with it, man. It's a beautiful thing. The man does not fit the mold of a professional wrestler. And
that's exactly what you want.
He does not fit the mold of a champion. I love that about him. But there comes a point for me, and I'm struggling with it. Is there's like a formula to a Darby where like 90% of his match he's getting just beaten up by his opponent, and it's one thing if it is a Brian Cage. I understand that. I understand if he's going against a Lance Archer. That kind of guy, a Will Hobbs. If you're going against a guy who, is an established powerhouse, an established star, but when you're having that kind of match week in and week out against, undercard guys, and that's not a slam on JD Drake. It is the fact. It's the truth. As FTR talks about. I mean, I love myself some FTR. There's top guys. And then there's not top guys. And let's be honest, right? Like FTR, top guys, right? Top guy mentality. There are certain guys who are top guys, and this is not a slam on JD. He is not a top guy in AEW, period. And I don't think anybody could argue that, right? So, he has not been presented that way to this point. And given how loaded the roster is, I don't think that that's his ceiling, right? For him to be presented in this way where he's giving your secondary champion, again, we have to remember Kenny Omega is such a fighting world champion that it's hard. We forget, but the TNT championship is that week in, week out. That's your bread and butter. That's your secondary championship. And for your champion to get tossed around and to be just ragdolled like that, I struggle with that a little bit. And that's why tonight's segment, unfortunately, that match was a delete. And that's not a slam on JD Drake or Darby as performers. It's just the way that formula of the match played out. It just didn't click with me.
I completely understand where you're coming from. And, even with those positives, overall, I have to agree with you on that delete section. Nothing could be perfect for sure. But, let's shift into the only women's match. And then we'll follow that with the Britt Baker promo, which is nice. But, we saw at the end of this match, kind of like you said, segue into this, which I really enjoyed, that just like the master full circle, almost they just stole that half-hour segment or whatever more of all these characters. Like the HFO is growing more and more every week, and I love what they're doing. This feud with Dark Order and HFO is, to me, is top-notch stuff. Absolutely love it. Seeing the Bunny in the ring in singles action, she was very, very impressive.
Yeah.
And of course, having our new number one contender, Tay Conti, she's, like I said last week, every week she's impressing me more and more and more. And this is a testament to her hard work and paying off. And just this pairing between these two in the match was really fun to watch. And it was an elite match for me, definitely. And Bunny surprised me. I don't remember seeing her in-ring stuff. Both sold really well for each other. Both had some good chemistry. And then, of course, the added support ringside added more to the story. But after where it goes from here, I'm not sure. But I enjoyed this whole segment. Sadly, like we always talk about, the picture-in-picture gets always put in there for the women's match. I don't know when it's going to stop. But this match was an elite for me.
Yeah.
The hardworking, the very hardworking, the good storytelling, the good selling, and everything that happened before the match and after the match and during the match, outside the ring and all that. It definitely deserves an elite out of that. And what about you?
Yeah, man. I know that I think it's no surprise to anybody now that Tay Conti can go in the ring, right? I think that all of us see she's the number one contender for a reason. It's well earned. It's well deserved. That woman she can bring it, bro. Her strikes are on point. She reminds me a lot of Thunder Rosa when I see it. When I see her in the ring, I see a lot of Thunder in her, and just the push, the way she pushes the pace. Her striking ability is always crisp and it looks brutal. She's always moving for those submissions and moving in very tactical, intelligent fighter. She got that fighter mentality that she brings to her matches. And so I naturally have gravitated towards enjoying what I've seen out of Ty. I think that it was a pleasant surprise to see how much that Allie could go with her. You know, the bunny could go, man. Like she was hanging in there. That drop kick on the outside.
Brutal.
Into the barricade. That was an impressive spot. And for her to hit it as smoothly as she did, seamless execution on her part. And the bunny's character work too throughout. I mean, whether before this match and the whole segment with HFO and Darby, screaming in the comment and hearing the commentators saying that she's crazy and her interacting with the commentators, you could tell she's really loves what she does. She's very invested in it. And I've said it. I'll say it once. I'll say it again. Her being injected into the Butcher and the Blade again has changed that dynamic dramatically. She changes those guys. They become so much more engaging, so much more entertaining with her ringside. She's got that crazy mentality that just adds an extra layer to their performances that I really enjoy. I don't think that she's in that women's championship picture. This was a great showcase of her talents. And it allowed Ty Conti to get a nice, strong win on national television. Again, I think there's a couple things that are bothering you and I are on the same wavelength. There are a couple things that are bothering us a little bit about the presentation of the women's division, and that one picture-in-picture tends to be prevalent throughout a lot of their matches. Two, we really only get one women's match per Dynamite, which has become a trend. I think that the division is talented enough that we could venture out of that safe space and we could add another match to that once in a while, have two women's matches on a show. And then I think there's been a lot of noise in women's matches of late. Like,
for sure.
A lot of interference, a lot of other people on, in whether it's surrounding the ring or getting involved in the matches. Ty Conti beating Nyla Rose, that felt like a moment that could have really been huge. And yes, she's solidified as the number one contender, but I feel like some of that shine has been taken away because naturally there are just so many characters on screen. I think a little bit, I understand that AEW wants to get as many talents screen time as possible, continue to build stories, keep people relevant, keep people at the front of your mind. But I think sometimes that moments like this, it hurts a little bit when you have that much interference and that many moving parts going on. Now, this match in particular, I don't hate it. I thought that I understood in this match, Dark Order, Hardy family, like that those two are knee deep in this feud. So I get it, and I think that maybe it leads to more of those two groups going against each other. I'm all for that.
Absolutely.
But what this match did, what it needed to do, SPD, in my opinion, it gave Ty Conti another showcase in a singles match to prove that she's ready for a title shot against Shida. Certainly Shida being on the outside of this one, getting an up close and personal look of her number one contender in action. I thought that was a really well-played move by AEW.
Yep.
And I want to see that match. I think that could be a very an interesting one where maybe we could get Ty Conti become women's champion. I think I mean, honestly, if you think about it, brother, yes, we want to see Britt Baker take that title, but who else on the roster is presented in a way, we've talked about it, Jade, Britt, who else on the roster is presented in a way that could legitimately take away the title from Shida? So I think that Ty could potentially become the women's champ. I think that's absolutely interesting. but not if Britt Baker has anything to say for it,
Oof.
because Britt Baker completely delivered, as always, fire in her promos. That woman is so intelligent in what she spits knowledge in her promos, bro. It's not just trash talk. It's taking little pieces of truth, packaging them up in a absolutely on fire delivery and dropping them in our faces, man. This woman is killing it week in, week out. And now next week we get to see DMD 3 times, baby. We get to see her on Dark, on Elevation, and on Dynamite. She's gonna rack up those W's and quickly move up the ranks. I thought this segment was a really intelligent presentation. Again, Britt playing off of the storylines, playing off of the rules of AEW and sort of the ranking system. It gave some credibility to the promo. It made it have substance. It wasn't just trash talk, right? It was observation of what's been playing out in her division, and her giving us a general game plan of, okay, like, we all know I'm the top star of this division. Let's just be real. I'll go out there and I'll rack up some W's against some scrubs. I'll pad the stats and I'll rise up the rankings. If that's what I have to do, if I have to play the game, fine. Normally, like Britt is, you save Britt's matches for those main event, those top level matches. But I love what we're seeing. Next week we get to see DMD in action 3 times according to her promo. Cannot wait for that. You know that, bud.
Absolutely. And, first off, I love how the play on her new shirt, the AEW logo, essentially DMD, with their last promo being, the only 3 letters that matter are DMD. But, it is, we've talked about, or I've always talked about, a fighting champion and someone who, the face of the division, that we totally agree Britt Baker is the face of the division, at least showing face every single week. Yep. And now she's showing face every single day almost, that is capable. And so that's the leader you need in the locker room. That's the leader of the division you really need. Months past where we didn't have a consistent woman's face on TV. And now we're starting to get that, and this is the ultimate culmination of the Thunder Britt Baker feud, and now keep riding that momentum and continue to push the constant narrative that she is the face. And even in a short, powerful promo like we saw tonight, that's all you need to do if you're not having a match to really continue to make the division stand out above the rest. And so I thought it was a great promo, great shirt, and of course Rebel, by her side, is always a nice sidekick with the crutch and, the interference she had and the promo she cut on Elevation. So overall outstanding segment. And that led us into the main event of a jam-packed, star-studded main event, a trios match. Woo! That really, to me, we'll talk about our top performer, but to me, Moxley and the Young Bucks were starting to look so good together. Moxley was on a roll. He was absolutely dominant this match. It was weird seeing Kenny Omega and, the Young Bucks go toe-to-toe, but obviously that all changed quickly. We got some nice, typical Young Bucks stuff with their combos and their sweet combos. And I really liked the end, how it was saying, or how, the Young Bucks wouldn't do their finisher, and then Moxley tagged himself in. Then it was just paradigm shift after paradigm shift. You called it, man. Last week you called it, and I said no. I said, no way are we getting that swerve where the Young Bucks turn on Moxley. I said, no, I can't see this. And now you definitely called it. Props to you for doing that. Go back, rewind, and watch episode 28, and you'll see that. And I was absolutely I didn't want that to happen, because the Young Bucks have been flipping over more than pancakes, flip-flop McGee. So it's just I don't understand their direction right now. Obviously, there's a bigger picture, but talk about spray tans as well. You saw Matt Jackson's tear running down his eyes. I was wondering if you caught that. Maybe him and MJF go to the same spot, or something. So I thought it was a hard-fought main event. To me, though, the momentum was kind of running low for me watching the show when it came to the main event, because just when I see Good Brothers, it just gives me a sour taste, and I have absolutely no interest in them at all. But we knew something. We had a feeling something was going to happen. It wasn't going to be a clean win and just be done with the show. So, what did you think about this, man? The Young Bucks turning again.
I'm gonna echo your sentiments about the Good Brothers. I think that we're on the same page about those guys. It's hard for me. I just can't get behind them. But that said, I was intrigued by this morality play that's been going on about this storyline.
Right.
To me, I've really been. They've got me invested. They got me the hook in the cheek when it comes to the Young Bucks and the Kenny drama and that saga. And I don't think it's over yet. I really don't. I think that we're gonna still see the Young Bucks struggle. And I think that's a good thing, man. I think that, like, yes, wrestling tends to work best when there's a clear-cut heel and a clear-cut babyface. Like when we get to see a Jade versus Red Velvet, right? That's we talked about Thunder versus Britt. When you get to see these matches where there's a clear-cut good guy versus bad guy, that's what it makes. It makes wrestling. It's bread and butter. It's wrestling 101. But wrestling is also a beautiful thing in that it can be a reflection of reality and those relationships, man, like the depth and how many times have we had those moments where you get pulled back to a friend that maybe isn't best for you, right? Like those things happen. And I think that inner turmoil that you wrestle with, do I do this even though that's not how I want to roll with my life anymore? But I love this guy, and so you see that play out with the Bucks. I think that they undoubtedly have a lot of history with Kenny and a lot, and all these amazing things that have happened in their career, and the foundation of AEW has been laid because of that relationship. So yeah, it would be incredibly hard to turn your back on all that and walk away. And I think that plays off of real emotion, off of real, true relationships. And that's how life works. But we know that they see Kenny's gone off the tracks, man. This is not the same Kenny that started the AEW. This is not the same Kenny. Ever since his frustration with Hangman and sort of the falling out that those guys had, Kenny's really gone off the deep end, and he's lost it, and he's become.
He really has.
It's so to a point where it's understandable that the Bucks have this inner turmoil, and that's what I find fascinating. So I can navigate my way through my distaste for the Good Brothers. And cling on to the good of this, because I really think that it's complex. It's I don't know. You don't see this kind of storytelling in wrestling all the time, man. There's not a lot of times it's very cut and dry, black and white. Like, I want to get my title shot. I want an opportunity, stuff like that. This is complex stuff, man. This is like, loyalty, like even in the face of going against your inner compass, like loyalty versus morality and idealism versus versus action. I don't know. There's a lot of things they're layered in this. I find it fascinating, and I think that the Young Bucks are doing a nice job of allowing that emotion to play off without coming off as corny or forced. Yes, it's been a lot of weeks of this going back and forth. I think that there's gonna be some big blow up. I don't know, man. This is leading to a lot of interesting stuff. I don't think that the Bullet Club is all together. I don't think that they're in perfect harmony at this point.
No.
So there's still more fireworks to come. Getting into the
on BTE. We see on BTE of Jackson is so torn, Matt. So I don't know, man. It's interesting.
Yeah,
but Matt, was it elite or delete for you?
The match itself, when you factor in everything involved, I think it's hard not to give the match itself an elite, just because. I agree. There's a lot of storytelling going on. I personally, again, it's a soft elite though, bro. I went back and forth. This one could have been easily a delete
Black and
for
white
me.
elite.
This could have easily been a delete for me because of I really struggle watching. We've talked about it, right? There's just the Kenny and the Good Brothers dynamic. There's a lot of exciting trios combinations on the AEW roster. That's not my top one. So I would say that was something that detracted me. But the overall storytelling of this match was really on point, man. Like really, really good stuff. The struggle that the Good Brothers or the Young Bucks had trying to put Kenny away. Moxley being more than happy to tag in and the brutality that he showed on Kenny. Those guys have a long history dating back to Moxley's debut in AEW. So I thought that was really well played. Kingston coming down the ramp, trying even on a broken leg, trying to come make the save.
That was nice.
There's a lot of cool stuff that happened in this match. And whenever we get Don Callis on commentary too, I know you always enjoy that. So I thought it was a good match. It was a good overall segment. Certainly planted seeds and furthered that story that I'm really fascinated by, and that's what's got me going.
Yeah, I agree. And the main event story, the main event feuds is really fire right now, and they haven't lost any steam with the Mox Kenny saga, which has continued. And thinking about this stack card, Moxley was my top performer tonight. Really going against all odds, putting a whooping on Kenny Omega, looking strong all match. You're really the workhorse of the main event out of all 6 guys to me. I just think he was the most impressive. Like, yeah, he was some of his matches he's done, the choke out for the win and things like that. Like this, putting these massive paradigm shifts and kind of, getting in the face of the Young Bucks and just letting him finish the job, putting the final bullet down essentially. So I really enjoyed his performance. I think he looked very strong. Obviously Jericho it was tough not to pick him, man, but this is the best I've heard him, the most passionate I've heard him in a long time. And he is who I'll be talking about for the upcoming days and week. Moxley's performance won't be, but it was a great performance. But the Inner Circle segment will be what I'm still buzzing about for the second week in a row.
I know that, technically, Jericho didn't even wrestle. Jericho didn't even wrestle, right? So I get it. But I feel like the guy stole the show, man. I mean, when you talk about that epic promo that he had, when you talk about then even later on in the segment with Tyson, I just felt like Jericho's got everybody buzzing after this week's show. The guy has reminded the world why he's one of the greatest ever. And he's just, and heading fresh and heading into this, the Broken Skulls podcast
that's gonna
with
be
Stone
awesome.
Cold. I mean, he's got everybody buzzing again, man. This dude knows how to stay relevant. You talked about how he liked to keep MJF under his thumb. He's got his thumb on the pulse of wrestling fans, man. This dude knows how to play the fans. He knows how to build storylines. He knows how to keep things fresh and interesting and exciting. And again, his promo is what people are going to be retweeting, turning into little gifts and all sorts of great stuff throughout the week. People are going to be loving that stuff. And when you call out MJF on his spray tan, it's going to make me happy because it was making me feel uncomfortable because SPD was doing it week in, week out. Now that Jericho did it, we can do it too. I love it. So I thought that was great
I really
stuff.
think we should, talk to All Cartoon Wrestling and have them do a spray tan, MJF spray tan stuff, who did our cartoon, which is amazing stuff. If you haven't checked out All Cartoon Wrestling, there's some great stuff that he's been doing. But yeah, that's a spray tan meme or a cartoon would be outstanding. But
fantastic.
Next week's card is pay-per-view quality.
Fantastic. Card. Oh my gosh.
I think I have my favorite. I don't know, man. But first off, Anthony Ogogo in-ring debut. Obviously, we anticipate a possible enhancement talent with this, but it's always exciting to see a fresh young face kind of get an opportunity of a lifetime to debut on TV. Someone that obviously is not uncomfortable in the spotlight. So we're going to see the first, protege of the factory now. So it'll be interesting for that.
Dude, oh, man, this card is every single match. I'm like, man, this could be the one that. So
How
you
about I
got
talk about the next one, and I'll let you have 3.
No, it's all right. We'll go in our normal order. Even
All
though
right.
I'm gonna get robbed of talking about Pac. I think that Darby Allin versus Matt Hardy, like you said, I'd like to see another like vignette, little segment, pre-recorded type of stuff.
From both guys.
I would love to see from both guys. We've seen some cinematic matches in the past. This would be a one that I would say, hey, man, if they wanted to do something like that, non-traditional match, I'd be all for it. But I think that anytime you get these two type of talents involved in one match, the creativity is going to be dialed up to 11. They're going to make sure that the fans have something to talk about post-match, no doubt about it. I think this one's going to be a fun one.
Yeah, it'll definitely will probably turn into a glorified lumberjack match.
Yeah.
I have a feeling Dark Order is going to be out there. The HFO will be out there. So, this is not a barred from ringside match, but boy, oh boy, we have 2 titles on the line, and essentially like everything could be. This could be a full title match show. We have ex-champion Jericho, but I mean the Young Bucks are putting their titles on the line against Pac and Rey Fenix after winning that Battle Royal. So, this could, like you said, it could go either way. I don't foresee the Young Bucks losing necessarily, or the Young Bucks could lose at a cost of a Moxley or something like that, or the Pac and Phoenix could lose at a cost of a best friend, something like that. A clean win by either team is tough, man, because these are 2 of the best teams in the absolute world. So this is going to be a banger. I mean, what is the main event?
That talent in that
what is going to be the main event?
Oh my God, the talent in that match, brother. I'm sorry, man. That one is. That's as good as it gets.
Yeah.
That's Pac and Phoenix on one side. There's going to be that one's going to be so many moments where it's going to be like,
yep.
That the pace is going to be through the roof. Those guys are going to be go pedal to metal. I can't wait for that match. Then you talk about like Dax versus Jericho. You get 2 guys who are vets who are I think they're going to wrestle a very smart, like intentional match. Dax has definitely been trending in the right direction, even though Jericho said that he's indistinguishable from Cash. I have a feeling that he's gonna be taught a lesson a little bit in this one. Dax is gonna make sure that Dax is gonna take that personally, and Dax is gonna come at Jericho hard in this one. We all know that Jericho can dish it and he can take it. So I got a feeling Jericho is gonna be dialed in. This match is gonna be hard hitting. I think it's gonna be a little personal. Dax is going to want to prove a point at Jericho's expense because Jericho made sure to do the same this week in his promo. I have a feeling that this one could be a real like slobber knocker, as JR would say. Those 2 are just going to beat the piss out of each other. I think that one's going to be a lot of fun, bro.
I completely agree. Like I was grinning when I saw they announced this because I think, like I said last week, Dax is the workhorse of the Pinnacle, and Chris Jericho obviously being the leader, the Le Champion himself, and constantly, beat a dead horse talking about this. He's the one that's out there, on the front lines, proving
you said it
over and over and over again. How many matches Jericho has? Probably more matches on Dynamite. Granted, he's Jericho than combined, and so. You can't have your leader lose to Dax right here, but Dax is by all means capable of beating Jericho. But I think, Jericho has to come out on top as the leader. He can't take a loss right away like this.
Agreed.
So for him to prove, lead by example and all this stuff, it's going to be a very awesome battle for sure. Which this could, the tag match or this could main event the card to me. You could end in some crazy ass, total brawl if this was the main event, or you could have some kind of awesome title changes the tag match. So
I'm pulling for
whatever main event,
whatever's
main event, something's gonna happen. Whatever's the main event.
Yeah, well, that's bread and butter of AEW, man. Every week their main event has some sort of cliffhanger, some sort of absolutely must-watch moment about it. And this week we got to see that happen. With the Bucks turning on Moxley. Next week, like you said, there can be multiple. Dude, even Jade versus Red Velvet. I don't think that'll be the main event, but bro, especially given how packed this card is. but that one's been one that has been building for weeks upon weeks upon weeks.
Mm-hmm.
We know that match is going to be fire. Velvet cut an awesome promo tonight. We didn't get a chance to talk about that in particular in
Right.
this week's recap, but Velvet cut an absolute fire promo tonight. Her versus Jade, we know, is going to be a lot of fun. Getting to see Jade in the ring again, and honestly, Jade talks a lot of trash, man. She's going to be put up against somebody who, again, Thunder Rosa has told us a long time ago, guys, keep your eyes open for Red Velvet. This woman can do it. She can hang. She's got the fire in her belly to be great. I have a feeling that Red's going to go give it everything she's got and is going to push Jade. But we've talked about it. Jade's got a star. That one's going to be a great match, but Jade has that feeling of an undefeated streak going. I have a feeling that could be something they could build towards. Next week's show is going to be a must-watch, episode 30 of Dynamite Download at SPD.
It's a milestone.
So it's a milestone for us. I feel like it's a milestone show for AEW. It's the first night where they're independent of the AEW versus NXT Wednesday Night Wars.
Great point.
And they're going all out with this card, dude. Every single match that you just threw out there is absolutely fire. I'm going to be all week with my little Young Bucks voodoo, my little Funko Pop Young Bucks, but putting needles in them, hoping that Pac pulls out the victory this week. Maybe they'll get an injury or something like that. I'm rooting I'm rooting for the Pac to pull it out. We'll see what happens, bro. Next week's gonna be a blast. A lot of content. Make sure you get out there, subscribe to us on YouTube so you can catch all of our videos. All the content that's coming your way. And then you see us on social, man. You got AEW Dynamite DL at AEW Dynamite DL on Twitter. And SPD is always posting great content on Instagram. You're going to see different images that we create together as a team, show clips, highlights, all sorts of awesome content in our stories. Dynamite Download on Instagram. And you could just listen to us live on Spotify.
That's right.
And then tomorrow, Bonds will be dropping his column. That's going to be a must read. Everybody, Bonds is going to be bringing it. He and I talked a lot about this show. He's got some hot takes in store for you all. So make sure you check that out tomorrow at awdynamitedownload.com. Until then, guys, we will talk to you on Friday night. Thank you so much for joining us. Thanks for sharing this content with your friends and family. We will talk to you soon.
And spread the power of positivity, baby.
Work on those spray tans.